All right. I'm going to say right off that I disagree with a lot of the statements made in this video. Disagree either entirely or partially. Anybody else? Everybody happy with everything that was stated here or not?
Well, I think the statements are above my pay grades. It's more a case of wishful thinking, the romance and intrigue of the space travel and all its inherent paradoxes are fascinating ideas. And I certainly think that's worth evaluating.
I think the one thing we must just remember, I think it was, who's the guy with that motor neuron disease or whatever, the famous physicist from England? Um,
Stephen Hawking.
Yeah, Hawking, yes. He held a party one day. He said, right, he's going to send open invitations to all time travelers to attend his party. All
Oh,
time,
yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and nobody from the
yeah,
future popped up in his lounge and attended the
yeah,
party.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that was
I
quite a
remember that.
clever way of saying, you see, there's no such thing as time travel. Although obviously it's not a 100% proof. It's possible, of course, that there were time travelers who declined his invitation, but I thought that was quite a good one.
Yeah, that is.
But yeah, I think, a lot of the statements he made, it's just too much. But let's first hear your views. Pierre, Pierre, you still with us? Pierre de
I
Villiers?
thought calisthenics. I mean, using the term that time travel into the future happens every day is not correct because the clocks on the muon and the clocks on Earth are moving at different relative speeds. So that statement is not correct. The grandfather paradox, I think, is correct, and I think the bottom line of it all is you can move within your light cone, but not out of it. And I think if you accept that fact, then you can explain the apparent paradoxes in his statement. It was interesting. It was, as I said, thought calisthenics,
Yeah,
but it
it's
doesn't alter the fact
exercises
that
your mind.
you restricted to your light cone.
There are several of his statements, that whole thing of saying, yeah, Einstein's general theory of relativity proved that eternalism is the right way of looking at it. Total nonsense, totally incorrect. And it's very easy to see why. Um, his whole thing, he went on for a long time about this river of time exists all the way into the past and into the future, total nonsense. When he made the statement that two people in different parts of the universe are looking at the same event, for one person, the event is in the future, for the other person, it's in the past. Again, total nonsense. If you're standing next to that event, close to it, not far away in terms of light distance or light speed, you will, if both of you are near to it, you will both see it at the same time. So that event happens at one time. The only difference is the light traveling from that event to one person is a different distance, therefore a different time that the light takes to travel to the other person. But the event happened at one time. It didn't happen in the future. It happens if you have the same clock for both people and they were able to communicate instantaneously, then the one would say they see the event long before the other one. But that can't happen. You can't both have the same clock. So yeah, it's just nonsensical. A lot of the stuff, I'm afraid, if you pick it apart, the fact that he also says when you approach the speed of light, a body with mass will increase its mass, that's incorrect. That is not what general relativity or special relativity says. It's an incorrect view. The correct view is you take the complete general formula, in putting the Lorentz transformation and gamma and all those things in the correct places. What actually happens, your momentum increases, which is different to saying your mass increases. And momentum is mass times velocity. So I think the Don Lincoln guy from Fermilab explains it very well. And he shows you mathematically why so many physicists are actually just taking shortcuts. It's just easier for them to explain to first-time students hearing the theory of relativity for the first time to say that your mass increases, therefore you can't go. Your mass would be increased to infinity if you try to go faster than the speed of light. Just not correct. So I'm afraid this is one of these history of the universe lectures where I just fundamentally disagree with a lot of what was said. I don't know if you agree with what I've been saying, Pierre. There's plenty of other things too. So generally, I mean, this is all nitpicking. I will admit everything that I'm saying. As Pierre says, yeah, it's all a thought exercise, really. So it is useful to consider, but you need to be grounded in physics to come to the correct conclusions about the exercise. So yeah, sorry. I had my rant. You guys can now have your say.
Certainly is.
I certainly agree with you, because what happens if you go back in time and, shall we say, you knock a bottle off the table or something? That's a happening. When you come forward in time, when you come back to where you started, all these things have happened. You can't unhappen them. So my thinking of time travel is that it's not possible unless you want to move the entire visible galaxy and move it from one black pot to another one. Then you can do as you choose. But what do you do if you go back in time? You've altered something in the process of going back. So what happens to it? Where does it go?
I prefer the what was the opposite of his eternalism? Presentism. I prefer the presentism view. The one thing I believe, this everything as it is right now it's as you say, it's changed in the past. Where it is now, and it's going to change in the future. It doesn't mean that you can't direct the way events are going to go in a certain microcosm sector of where you are, of your universe around you, and so on. When you go and you pick up a stone and throw it over the road, you can either choose to do that or choose not to do that. So, yeah, I think it's the eternalism is a sort of determinism theory, which I just cannot agree with. It's a sort of no free will theory. I can't agree with that. So yeah, but the one thing is, mind-boggling thing is, time does speed up and slow down. Time itself does speed up and slow down. We've seen that when Pierre Hugo's friend came and gave us a talk, and then about his book that he'd written on his admittedly weird way out theories of subatomic particles and stuff. But he had bought some
understanding what benefits.
He bought some subatomic clocks from California, and he'd done an exercise where he measured differences in time, with the clocks being a meter apart and so on, vertically above each other, in 3 different places, one in Betty's Bay at his house there, one in Cape Town, one in Stellenbosch. And he showed us a graph he'd done over 30 days, and it followed a sine curve where the clocks varied in time to a maximum, I think, of about 30 billionths of a second. But there was a variation, and he graphed it, and it was sort of broadly speaking, in a sine curve, and that coincided exactly with the rotation of the moon around the Earth. There were some odd spikes and so on, which were different in the three different spots. There was one spike which was the same in all three spots, where the time jumped and dropped back again. And that happened to be, when I looked at the calendar and when it happened to be 6 hours before that major earthquake in Christchurch, where a lot of people were killed and so on.
Oh, okay.
That to me was fascinating and interesting, but the point of what I'm saying really is, yeah, we have to admit, time speeds up and slows down and is affected by gravity and the speed at which the clock is traveling relative to, I don't know, relative to another clock. So yeah, how that happens, I don't know if anybody knows. I don't know how that gets explained. We
Yeah.
understand that, then we understand everything in the universe.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, in my view, I think, Einstein, I don't know if he said somebody else did it, unified space and time being one and inseparable. Personally, I take that further and I actually say time doesn't exist. Time is just an abstract concept that we create in our minds to explain variations in the universe around us. We call it time, but it isn't something definitive which exists, which has a dimension. It's just a concept that we have to explain how things change.
Yes, novel.
So, sorry, bringing my views into the thing again. Anybody else got different views?
Novel approach.
Just a comment that's contrary to the accepted arrow of time, which has a direction. And also related to causality. That's related also to the comment that two observers cannot see the sequence or event A happening before B for one and vice versa for the other. But I think your statement that time doesn't exist needs quite a lot of explanation.
I could take half an hour and try and explain my views to you, but that's, I think, not for this session. But I could.
I think I'd prefer to do it over a cup of coffee, Derek.
Okay. Again, Don Lincoln has got a very good relativity, how people get time dilation wrong. I think that's a pretty good video. It's an 11-minute video. I think we have been through it before. But he explains everything mathematically. That coincides with a lot of my views, I think. Okay. Anybody else?
Peter's on mute. He's talking.
Go ahead, Mick.
Peter is on mute. He's talking, but we can't hear.
Peter, were you saying something? We couldn't hear you. Try again, Peter. Peter, I can see you, but I don't.
Which Peter will be talking about today?
Okay, Peter, your mic is on. Can you answer us?
Obviously not.
The icon says his mic is on, but we can't hear any sound from him. All right.
It's a movie.
Okay, if we've got no other comments, then I'm going to thank you for your attendance, and sorry I hold so much of your time. I think perhaps at some stage somewhere we can just fit in this 11-minute video of Don Lincoln's again about. Peter, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, good.
And now your mic says you're on mute, Peter Harvey. Peter Gurgle, have you got any comments before we go?
Oh gosh, Derek, so many. I've got such a headache here. I've just had to have a Panado.
I tell you what,
Yeah, look, it's the same with all these presentations, Derek.
Yeah.
I think they're great, but I just don't feel qualified in order to make any comments on these things. I've had my own ideas about time. I sort of share some of your ideas about the present, but maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
You know, to me, I think on sort of like a macro scale, we can only see the present, but maybe on a atomic scale, you can see slightly in the future and slightly into the past, which it sort of explains why things happen so random. But I don't know that. I'll write a book on it, maybe, Derek.
Peter typed out his comment. He says that he doesn't think Einstein would have said time is a fourth dimension without a cause. I can have a debate with you on that, but we don't have time now. I don't believe he said time is a fourth dimension. I believe he said space-time are inseparable from each other. And by the way, Pierre's comment on the arrow of time, I saw one of these physicists saying in a video that there is no mathematical reason why time should follow, why there should be an arrow of time in one direction. The formulas, all the formulas for all the standard things, physics, things, general relativity, everything, time can be reversed in them. So there is nothing in the current theory which says that time cannot be reversed, except for logic.
That statement is true, because for different universes, whether time is going forward or back, the laws of physics remain exactly the same, invariant. But causality also plays a role, and that is fundamental to the direction of the arrow of time.
I've got a problem with this multiple universes. I know Peter Harvey is a fan of multiple universes and likes them. I think it's one of those things that's a nice concept and sort of semi-explains some things, but I just think it's nothing we can ever prove or disprove. So I just disregard it personally. I don't think it exists. I think it's irrelevant almost. Sandy, you're talking now and your mic is off.
I like the idea always of saying, prove it when I hear something.
I'm going to make a suggestion. If anybody has multiple questions or even one or two questions and they'd like to email it, maybe email them all to Peter and make a summary of people's questions which they'd like more detail on and more explanation on. I think many of the statements in the video, by the way, I've also got a transcript which can be sent out to everybody. It might be easier just to read through it and say, yeah, but what about this and why does he say that and so on. Maybe just make bullet point comments if you like and send them all in, and another time we can just have a discussion in maybe research some of the answers properly and see what the experts say. Maybe I've been talking a lot of nonsense myself, and let's just see. If you've got questions, please raise them. And let's try and get to the bottom of some of these weird things. Okay, so I'm inviting everybody to send in questions if you so desire.
Okay.
I would just close by saying that I really enjoy what you guys present. Very well done, and it's a pleasure to share with you.
Peter Korgel, were you saying something?
Yes, no, I agree, and I'll put together my thoughts on an email. I think if I started asking questions now, we'd be here till midnight.
Thanks. Let's do that. Let's put them all together. Try and get some of our answers together, and then discuss them maybe at some stage, and just see who is talking nonsense, who can't be answered, who can be answered, and maybe some of the answers are easier than we think and not so mind-boggling. All right, I'll put together some of my own as well. Thank you all for your attendance. If there's nothing else, Can we?
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
I'll send a link. I'll record. I've got this recorded as well, the discussion, so we can all get a link to that as well. Cheers, everybody.
Was
See you next.
entertaining. Thanks, Derek. Bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye.